2 years old. That's the age of the latest victim of Pakistan-backed terror, Titu Sawhney from Rajasthan. Now, even as Prime Minister Modi was getting ready to take his oath for the third time, terrorists struck in Jammu. They opened fire at a 53-seater bus going to the Mata Vaishno Devi shrine. The bus plunged into the deep gorge. 10 people, including Titu and 14-year-old Anurag Verma, were killed. 40 other people were injured. The Pakistan-backed Resistance Front, which is a front for the Lashkar-e-Taiba, has claimed responsibility. Now, this dastardly attack on civilians in Jammu once again highlights the growing terror attack threat south of the Pir Panjal. As security forces hunt for the perpetrators, the questions we are asking is, why has Jammu become a terror hub? And more importantly, why the double standards when it comes to Jammu and Kashmir? All eyes on Rafah, but none on Reasi. Joining me to discuss this are Lieutenant General Konsam Himalay Singh, Dr. Priyanka Singh, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul here in the studio with me. Welcome to the News9 Plus Show. I'm going to start by asking General Himalay Singh this question. Why Jammu, General Singh? Why are terrorists now seeking safe haven south of the Pir Panjal? How has this shift happened? Could you tell us?
The area south of Pir Panjal were very active from the insurgency and militancy point of view prior to around, say, till the year 2010-11. Thereafter, till the last few years, south of Pir Panjal has been relatively free of militancy. In the last few years, we see a sharp increase in the activities of these Pakistan-backed terrorists. The reason why Jammu region becomes important is, firstly, from the point of view of infiltration routes from the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, is one of the major routes of infiltration all weather, whether during winters or summers. That is one reason I can see. The second reason I would like to share with you is that the area is a mixed population, Hindus and Muslims, in some degree of increase or decrease in percentages, right from south of Pir Panjal till Jammu. So the militant groups or their masters will like to create some kind of a communal disharmony, so that Jammu and Kashmir is kept on the boil at all times.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The third I attribute is that as we see, reasonable amount of peace and prosperity in Jammu region today, it will be endeavor of any anti-India elements to disturb that progress in some way. So this is manifesting in such kind of activities, and I think this kind of activities will be seen in the near future also.
Many more activities in the near future. Aditya, we've been seeing a spate of such terror attacks in the last couple of years, especially targeting civilians in Jammu and Kashmir, in Jammu particularly. As General Singh mentioned, that this shift to south of the Pir Panjal is because the terrain favors terrorists. How different was this attack on the busload of civilians in Reasi, different from previous attacks?
One thing that we need to understand, Sandeep, is that in the early 90s and in early 2000s, we actually saw resurgence of this kind of terrorism. And when the terrorism began in the 90s as well, the south of the Pir Panjal, particularly Poonch, Reasi and Rajouri, were particularly used by the Pakistani terrorists. They used to infiltrate, have terror attacks in this entire region, and also send in terrorists from this region to South Kashmir and further to Srinagar, not just to attack the security forces, but at that time, minorities as well. Post 2000s, from perhaps 2003, 2004, we've had a peaceful time, particularly in Reasi. I've traveled extensively in Reasi because I had relatives there in Jyotipuram and Reasi, and this has been a very peaceful region. since 2021, a couple of years after the abrogation of Article 370, we've had a resurgence of terrorism in this belt, particularly Poonch and Rajouri.
Right.
We've had continuous terror attacks
Right.
in which several of our security forces have been killed. We had dastardly attack in which paras, Night Para I think was involved, and we had heavy casualties in that as well.
Right.
What has happened is that our focus in the Rajouri Poonch belt, the south of the Pir Panjal, has not been there, particularly of the security forces.
Yes.
They perhaps tend to treat it as a local crime still and do not realize the consequences of the upper reaches in this region, which is a hiding area for the terrorists. In many of the cases, what has also been seen, Sandeep, is that terrorists enter, they conduct recce, they go back, then they again enter for the terrorism act, and finally go back to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So this is a challenge. Perhaps we need to recalibrate our security strategy in this entire region. We've had particularly a safe and peaceful Kashmir as compared to resurgence of this kind of terrorism in this region. And imagine, this is also a message from Pakistan.
Yes.
It comes at a time when Prime Minister Narendra Modi's swearing-in ceremony was on. I was at Rashtrapati Bhavan when I got the first phone call from Jammu that this terror attack had happened and almost 9 people had been killed.
This is about an hour before the swearing-in began.
Exactly an hour before.
Right.
Look at the timing, look at the message, look at the heavy casualties that have been done by Pakistan. And all that while Pakistan Prime Minister was silent. It's only today in the afternoon that he has the guts perhaps to congratulate the Prime Minister. But the question certainly is that how do we deal with this? This is a new massive challenge that they will have to deal at a security level, politically, domestically also, because the opposition will raise questions on the government as to what their strategy really is against Pakistan.
What is the strategy against Pakistan? Indeed, one of the reasons that the Pakistan Prime Minister was not invited to yesterday's swearing-in was the fact that terror and talks can't go hand in hand. I think that's the Government of India's policy. And terror has now returned. And Dr. Priyanka Singh, what is the message that Pakistan is trying to convey with this dastardly attack, this killing of civilians in Reasi?
I think we really have to see this attack in some kind of perspective. And if you talk about Pakistan, the fact that it happened on a day when a government headed by Prime Minister Modi was being sworn in for a third consecutive term, and an impressive lineup of foreign dignitaries were in New Delhi. I think the idea may have been to really dampen the atmosphere for that matter. And secondly, we also have to understand that this is a government which has virtually decimated Pakistan's Kashmir strategy.
Yes.
And I would say even after 5 years of the abrogation, the establishment there is kind of really seeking to establish, to find out, I think, to resurrect its Kashmir strategy. And so that it has some kind of traction, regarding Pakistan's position on the application of Article 370. So it was really expected, I think, that they would at least try to do something just to have that kind of attention.
Right.
And third point, just a very short point I would like to address is that we also have to see the pattern on the attacks against the pilgrims. So they have been happening of late, and especially in the aftermath of the application of Article 370. I mean, in 2021, as Aditya also mentioned, there was an attack on pilgrims who were traveling to Vaishno Devi Shrine, and of course this group of pilgrims are also going to the same place. But this has been happening over a period of time, and we really have to look at it. I mean, why these pilgrims are being targeted in the larger perspective? Because earlier the attacks were more sort of directed against the security forces, but now these innocent pilgrims have been targeted who actually belong to other parts of the country and not to J&K per se.
Right. This deliberate targeting of civilians, Aditya, the fact that pilgrims are being targeted, does that indicate that there's more trouble in store with the Amarnath Yatra beginning for the next 2 months?
That's the biggest challenge for the administration. Imagine it's not a government that's ruling in Jammu and Kashmir right now, even though the security and the law and order is with the MHA.
Right.
And of course, they have foolproof security, the Northern Command, the CRPF, the J&K police are working tirelessly for that. But it's a big challenge. The pilgrims all across India, lakhs in number, throng to the Amarnath shrine from Jammu to Baltal. And that is a question that they will be asking. This year, record numbers again were being expected that 5 to 6 lakh pilgrims might come in. So what would be the security preparedness? How will the government, the security and the administration assure the common people that you don't need to fear? And as Dr. Priyanka also mentioned, I firmly believe that this is a modus operandi, this is a strategy of Pakistan to create a communal divide in the south of the Pir Panjal, as General was also mentioning, our esteemed guest, that this belt has a Hindu population and a Muslim population who have lived peacefully ever since the 90s terror attacks. Yes, there were a few massacres that happened in Ghul and a few other areas, but this area has been relatively peaceful. There were incidents in Kishtwar and other places also, but this kind of terror attack is new. We've had in May 22, I think, attack on the Vaishno Devi pilgrims, in which 2 to 4 pilgrims had died. But this is a deliberate strategy at a time when Pakistan has failed completely in Kashmir, not able to internationalize it. They are targeting south of the Pir Panjal. They are creating a new belt for infiltration and to target a new kind of population in this area.
Absolutely. And General Singh, Aditya mentioned the fact that they are deliberately targeting these regions, as you've said so yourself. Now the fact that Pir Panjal, the terrain is very different from the kind that the security forces have been used to operating of late. They're high altitude jungles, dense terrain, the kind that favors the attackers who hide and use these infiltration routes. What is the kind of change in tactics that the Indian Army would need to do to tackle these new infiltrators who are hiding there and literally popping up to carry out such horrific terror attacks?
I think to begin with, we have to have a very close cooperation with the civil population, which we are doing. I think the security forces have done it well.
Yes.
And a very robust synergy between the civil establishment and military establishment there. That is extremely important, and also traditional supporters of the military, like Gujars and Bakrawals. They have to. We actually have to go overboard unless the people support. I think no amount of counter-terrorist or counter-insurgency tactics will work. Having said that, I also believe that a large number of highly technical intelligence and other type of intelligence gathering and surveillance are available these days. So we have to exploit the technology more, because the troops who are they are extremely well trained. They will produce results. They will neutralize all these anti-national elements. But the intelligence is the main issue here. And intelligence is basically human intelligence is the most accurate, plus technical intelligence. And in that type of a terrain where we know it's a broken ground, and I know tunnels can be made, and so many. It's a place where it's very difficult to actually trace 2 or 3 militants hiding in some caves or in some corner of the country. So therefore, the intelligence is the key, and synergy between the civilian establishment like police and the military. And I've served for nearly 10 years in the entire area south of Pir Panjal, in that area, and I can assure you that justice will be done to the perpetrators of these attackers and their backers. And somebody mentioned about you mentioned about the Amarnath and all. I can assure you that foolproof security. I think we have a system where we can provide a very high degree of confidence level for security for Amarnath Yatra as well.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Priyanka Singh, there's been a debate of late whether the army should be thinning out of Jammu and Kashmir, given the fact that the situation is largely returning to normal. And in the past, there have been certain forces that have been moved out of counter-insurgency and shifted towards the northern front with China. Do you think these kind of attacks would actually pause that kind of redeployment of forces and the fact that the army will continue to remain in Jammu and Kashmir to tackle these kind of incidents. What's your take on this?
I think if you ask me personally, I believe that this is not the time to really kind of for the army to really recede from Jammu and Kashmir in that sense, because this is not the time. We are still in some kind of a very delicate transition period. And I think the army, which has been there for a very long time, I think it has to see us through that delicate transition that I'm talking about. And such kind of terrorist attacks which have been happening, and I would disagree with you on that we shouldn't call it a spate of attacks, because we would all agree that the scale of attacks, the volume of attacks, they have definitely come down from what it was in the past. So, I mean, but irrespective of the fact, if there are attacks like this happening, I think the debate on whether the army should be there or not, or whether in lesser numbers or things like that, I think this kind of a debate should wait for some more time.
This kind of a debate should wait for some more time. But Aditya, there's another debate that we've been talking about, the fact that how celebrities, the way they've responded to the Reasi attack, vis-a-vis, say, the Rafah, all eyes on Rafah but no eyes on Reasi. Why these double standards?
You know, Sandeep, I don't take these celebrities seriously, even though they do, people do, and people of course follow them on Instagram, on Twitter, on social media. And what really happened a few days back was that there was a lot of propaganda, a lot of news stories doing rounds around what happened in Rafah, the continuing war between Israel and Hamas. These same celebrities did not tweet all eyes on southern Israel when the terror attack took place on 7th of October.
Absolutely.
And forget that. You know, there are two ends to this. One, the celebrities are completely silent when Indians have been killed.
Yes.
They are mute spectators. Are Indians killed in such a barbaric manner not heart-wrenching enough?
A 2-year-old boy.
A 2-year-old boy, Titu Sawhney.
We can't, you know, unfortunately play out the image of Titu Sawhney for obvious reasons, ethical reasons. But the fact is that that image of 2-year-old Titu Sawhney killed in that terror attack will haunt us for months to come.
And you know, Sandeep, Titu isn't the only one. He has lost 3 family members.
Yes.
There is 14-year-old Anurag as well. There are 9 innocents who have lost their lives. What was their crime?
Yes.
And why doesn't, you know, hearts of these celebrities bleed for these kinds of civilian killings? That is the kind of hypocrisy, double standards and double talk that we are witnessing. You know, these celebrities may be doing this for their own PR, publicity, but at a time like this, when the nation needs to unite and come together and stand behind these victim families, stand behind India against this global Islamist terrorism, one really questions and, you know, imagines that what really happens, why this hypocrisy? And of course, there are several countries also that are completely silent.
Yes.
There's a huge debate on that there should be a cohesive fight against terrorism, but countries are completely silent, even though the casualties are 9. There are almost 35 people who are injured, many of them battling for their lives.
Exactly. No, and that's the unkindest cut of all, the double standards that our own citizens sometimes seem to follow when it comes to terrorism. It's fashionable to talk about terror attacks and hostage situations in other countries, but when it comes to our own citizens, there's absolute stunning silence. But that's all we have for this segment of Terror Hub Jammu. We're going to be tracking that story very closely. Thank you very much for joining us, General Singh and Dr. Priyanka Singh. We'll keep coming back to you for insights on this. Aditya Raj Kaul continues to join me in the studio.